I got the walk, there's a longboard walk. I know the talk, the longboard talk.
Welcome along to episode 12 of Oz Longboarding in Perth, Western Australia, with arms made of jelly from a great day's surfing in the city. I'm Jason Weeks, and wherever you're joining us from tonight, episode 12, we're going to be talking about our best Aussie road trips. So obviously we'll stay away from our best international road trips for now because it's not real possible for anyone at the moment. But joining us around the country, we have a panel of specialists on the art of longboarding and covered some miles between them. And we have a special guest along tonight as well. So we'll start off first of all with our Sydney correspondent, but he's actually on the road living the dream as per what the episode is all about. Matty Chinoski, you've got a friend with you, mate.
I do. I've got young Tully White from Manly. Say hello, Tully.
Hello.
Yay!
Tully's a professional longboarder from Manly, and we were up here doing a shoot with one of our sponsors, FCS Fins, and wave-wise, Sydney, we didn't want to leave. Sydney's been the best. It has literally been the best winter we've ever had, and we didn't really want to leave, but we had to come up. And yeah, I guess you guys might see the video or photo stuff coming out in the next couple of weeks because we scored today, so it was worth it.
Cool.
And we're on limited bandwidth. We're at a service centre that everyone knows on the east coast of Australia. You know, we're just talking about the big multinational companies that are ruling our Pacific Highway. You can't get a good old-fashioned meal unless you turn off the highway these days. But nonetheless, we're tuning in, limited battery, limited internet, but we're here.
And Tully, thanks for joining us this week, mate. And tell us, have you been getting some waves so far on your trip?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, we only found out about the trip yesterday, and we're here today, and it's been really fun. So yeah, it was nice. It was nice to just get a quick getaway in the middle of the week and road trip.
Unreal. Nothing better than getting a surf middle of the week while everyone else is at work. Down in Victoria, not able to do anything, work, go surf, do anything within about 300 metres of his front door. Nathan Riverland, how's it going down there in COVID Central?
Hey, Weeksy. Yeah, it's not too bad, I guess. We've been okay here on the coast. We only just went into a stage 3 lockdown last night. So we're still allowed to sort of travel around sort of the local or maybe go like 50 Ks or so. But yeah, it's still not too bad. Just got to wear masks and getting used to it. I mean, like it's pretty crazy. But yeah, fingers crossed we'll have a few weeks of negating figures and we'll be all right. But,
what sort of mask have you got, Nate?
I've got like this black.
Don't wear a cloth one, mate.
I've got this black mask. It's pretty hardcore. I'm looking like a bandit. But yeah, it's going all right. The surf's actually been really terrible here the last week, so just been plugging away with all my uni stuff. So it's been all right.
Oh, well, that's good then, mate. That gives you something to keep you distracted, get some work done. And
Right.
On the Gold Coast, Sean McEwen, you don't get any work done these days, do you, mate? Kira Coffee Club every day.
Mate, hey, I start the morning off at Kira. Again, this morning we had waves. Not quite as good as it has been. On the weekend we had all time. You'll see some shots coming out, or probably already seen them, of Snapper and that. Kira's been just pumping earlier in the week. But yeah, with sunshine, cool mornings, but beautiful days, and just pretty good vibe. And yeah, at this stage, no masks.
Unreal. That must help with the vibe. I've seen a few conversations about moving borders south and this sort of thing. I feel sorry for you guys. I mean, I was stuck in WA. Within WA, we had lockdown borders, so I kind of know what it's a little bit about. But I don't.
We've got new lockdowns coming this week. Not too sure how severe they're going to be. But yeah, sort of starting to get a little bit angry about it all because they said they want to keep out all the people from the ACT and New South Wales from bringing it in. But the last few cases that have come into Queensland have all been brought back by Queenslanders. So can't quite fathom what they're on about.
Crazy.
I get political.
But the good news is, guys, that our states are all riddled with really good waves, and
Yeah.
you know, we didn't even want to leave Sydney. The waves have been that good, and we've come 3 hours up the coast to get. We surfed today a peak with no one out for 3 hours. A right hand. Oh, it was a peak. It was a proper peak, and it was barrels, it was turns, nose rides. We surfed a famous right-hand point with no one out this afternoon for 2 hours. No one out.
And that's
You got the present, eh?
that's the beautiful thing about road trips. It's like being on holidays. But speaking of someone, a perfect right-hand point breaks, Jack Entwistle joins us. He's you haven't had much time out of Jack over the last couple of weeks. So how's things been in the Byron Bay zone, mate?
Mate, Byron's been pretty good. As Natty said, we've been pretty spoiled with waves up here. Spent a couple of days down in Coffs Harbour with Harley, and nice to just get some waves with not many people out. It's kind of a treat, and kind of don't realise how lucky you are until you get to, like these guys, go on a road trip and get some waves with no one out. It's definitely better than being in Byron and surfing with 100 people.
Beautiful. And I had the lucky pleasure this morning of surfing a beach really close to the centre of Perth, really. And there was a few people out at Scarborough I ended up going to rather than City Beach, where the photo I put on Facebook. It's a little trick for your kids. Always put up a picture of where you're not going to surf for the day. It's a good one to follow. But Matt Chinoski made a fantastic point, which was, in these times where you can lament the fact that we can't jump on a plane and go, I'm normally Indonesia or Samoa around about now. But within our own backyards, within our state borders, we've all of us got access to amazing, incredible waves. And that's what we're here to talk about today, is the Aussie longboarding road trip. And what better way to stoke the fires of motivation for surfing than to go somewhere a little bit different to your usual break and experience some different waves and different people. But, Matt, we'll start it off with you because that's a really good point, mate. It's like, so in New South Wales, you're in Sydney, so obviously you've got a little bit south and quite a lot north to explore. Where do most Sydney-siders tend to go on their road trip? For us in Perth, just for argument's sake, it's 3 hours south to Margaret River. It's like a pilgrimage when you're a kid. Once you get good enough, you go down south. That picture in the background's 3 bears, which is not far from Margaret River. But you have to wait till you're good enough and then you get to go there. What's the Sydney equivalent of that kind of a road trip, a weekend?
It still follows the classic 60s road trip from Sydney, which was north, which is to warmer waters. Sydney's all round, pretty mild as far as international temperatures go. We get as low as maybe 17 in the coldest winter day with the water, and as high as maybe 21. But going north's always the allure and consistent right-hand point breaks. But I go south a lot. A lot of shortboarders go south to chase the reef breaks. So yeah, 3 hours north, 3 hours south, pretty much the same as WA there. Because I know up north, 6 hours north, you're in a completely opposite to what we have, 3 or 6 hours north. But yeah, it's south and north. I choose depending on the swell directions. But yeah, I went south last week because I've been to north. Saw Jack. I broadcasted live 2 weeks ago from Byron Bay, and now I'm in Taree. I'm in my car with Tully. But yeah, last week I went down south for a day trip as well. 3 hours. Stayed with Jace Pioli, Dame Pioli's brother. Surfed around Ulladulla and Mollymook. There's still longboard pockets down there, but no one hunts it out per se. So you can actually get good waves that are under the radar because everyone's looking for slabs, and you've got a log, and I want to surf the slabs too. But when it gets on shore, the longboards, you have the ability to slide one out of the car and go surf a little nook and cranny. So South Coast is great for that, but North Coast is where you get the best longboard waves.
Vouch for all that, Jack. You were a Sydney sider. What do you prefer, being a bit further north and sort of having that southern area or south from you, which is still well north of Sydney?
Mate, they've both got their benefits. Obviously, when I was in Sydney, I used to go down south a lot, down to Shell Harbour and Wollongong. As Matty said, there's slabs and good longboard waves down there as well. But yeah, you can't miss the classic north road trip up to all the famous points from Crescent up to Byron and everywhere in between. There's so many different types of waves, and places that are uncrowded and not overpopulated. So they both got their benefits. They're completely both different kind of places. One's warm, one's freezing. So it just depends what you want to do and how far you want to drive. And
what boards you want to ride.
That's true.
Absolutely.
That's it. And so, Nath, I mean, just about everywhere is a mission from Melbourne to go for a surf. I've spent a bit of time on the Vico coast. It's what was your, once I get good enough, I can go surf there kind of place as a Vico?
I guess living in Torquay and Bells, I guess you sort of start surfing the points and sort of starting there, and then obviously as you get better, you probably be building up and you go and surf Bells and Winky. For both the shortboard and longboard, Bells is obviously there's been Australian titles there and all that before. So yeah, take your log out there, and then there's quite, because the Victorian coast, I guess, is pretty powerful and untamed. You usually go south to get some bigger waves. So from Bells and that, you can go south 2 or 3 hours and go down to Joanna and Port Campbell and all that area. And there's still quite a few secret spots around there, and the locals don't really like that you talk about it. So I'll keep it limited.
That Joanna's scary, man.
Yeah, Joanna is hairy. It's really good, especially over summer when we've got some smaller swells down here and some northeasterly winds. Joanna and Port Campbell and all that can be epic. So yeah, it's definitely good to go down there during summer. But at the moment, I think, was it the other day, we had a 6 to 8 foot swell, so it would have been absolutely macking down at Joanna. It would have been like 10 to 12.
I surfed it on my own one very stormy afternoon, and it was all overcast, and I was a million miles out to sea. I got pounded. Anyway, I thought I was going to die. But it was enjoyable. Got it done. Sean McKeown, we'll round it out with you before we start getting into the technicalities. What do you need to take on your road trip to keep you happy? Sean, what as a Kiwi, what was your did you have a pilgrimage in mind to come to the east coast of Australia, or even within your own country?
My best or most memorable ones would still be back in NZ. I finished my schooling in Auckland, got my first car up there, and most weekends we'd go and hit the west coast, which was only an hour's drive. But when we knew it was on, we'd do the pilgrimage down to Raglan, back when 10 guys, 15 guys in the water would be a crowd. And it would be a case of driving down through the night, sleeping on the frozen ground, getting up and just getting into the surf as quick as possible to warm up. When you think that you got to jump into 14-degree water to warm up, it's a bit of a worry. And then it would be after we'd surf for a couple of hours into town, into the Duck Inn for some pies. Right? Those are the memorable trips I had as a kid, as a youngster.
And also, obviously, being right on the Queensland-New South Wales border, you've got access to all those breaks Jack mentioned. I used to love that area from Port Macquarie up to the border. So many ways, every corner you go around. All right, let's throw it open to some actual road trip discussions and advice then. So we know we've all been on lots of road trips, obviously travelling around for competitions. You've got to pack your bags and get on out of there for the weekend or whatever. But you got the trips with your mates. The trips you take on your own sometimes I find can sometimes be the best as well. The ones where you break down but let's go around and what's your 2 essential items don't leave home without before you head off on a road trip? Nathan, you're smiling. Have you thought of one of these already or something?
No, I'm just having a good think actually.
All right. Sean,
you go last.
Sean McKeown, as a contest director, has to pack up and set up half a city overnight on a regular basis. Sean, what's the 2 things, someone who hasn't been on a road trip before, what's the 2 things you shouldn't leave home without?
Well, the one thing that does stick in my mind was we went round to pick up a guy one year when we were heading down to Woolgoolga for the Teams Challenge. And this guy, we'll call him by his nickname Lumpy so that not everyone knows him. We've turned up at his place. He's about 65. He's standing there. He's got his board and his wetsuit. We're going away for 3 days or 3 nights. He's got nothing else. He was like a grommet on his first trip, mate. He had his board and his wetsuit. He didn't need anything else. He didn't need a sleeping bag. He didn't need a pillow. He didn't need a change of clothes. Yes.
There you go. So that's a good starting point from Sean. 2 things don't leave home without before you go on a road trip: a board and a wetty. Good start. Jack Entwistle, you've travelled the world tour competing at pro events. You've been all around the country. What's the 2 things you never leave home without before you head off on a road trip?
Besides your surfboard, I'd definitely say fins and a wetsuit, and then wax. My top 3. Without fins, you're doomed. Without wax, you're doomed. Without a wetsuit, if you're going somewhere cold, you're also doomed. So they're my top 3, I reckon.
All right. So top 3 things.
Where are you? Top 1. Top 2.
So that, well, actually, we'll go to Tully first. Tully, But just by being younger, you're probably a bit newer to road trips than the rest of us crusty old sea devils. But what's 2 things you never leave home without if you're going on a road trip?
For a road trip, I'd say from personal experience, you're going to want a backup phone charger because if you get stuck somewhere with no charge,
she's got the best breakdown story to tell you guys shortly. It is insane. I've had some classics. She outs me, and she was 17 we'll get into it. But
yeah, on the back of that is phone charger and NRMA roadside assist.
Oh, perfect. There you go. So I was casting aspersions on your road trip experience, but you've just given us a couple of golden pointers there. I think there's something in that for all of us. Nate, have you had a chance to think of anything yet? I'll tell you what, I'll go with mine because normally a road trip here means north or south and means surfing on reef and barnacles and things. So I always make sure I've got betadine and peroxide with you. Hydrogen peroxide gets all the splinters out and betadine makes it heal quicker so you're back in the surf faster. Nice. Road trip travel advice. What don't you leave home without?
I think everything that's already been said are definitely necessities, but being a bit of a writer, I like taking a diary on a road trip with me and what I'm up to. It's good kind of looking back fondly and remembering what you did. And I'd say maybe a toothbrush.
No.
Pretty good. I don't know. I just hate not having good dental hygiene. I don't know. And some deodorant too. Smelling bad's not good either.
This is where it makes a big difference whether you're on your own or not as well.
Yeah, 100%.
Who was that yelling out no in the background? Was that you, Matt, saying no?
If you're going on a surf trip, like, you're not out, you're in the water longer than you're out. So you don't need a toothbrush.
But what if you got like a dinner date or something, mate? You got to have something. You got to be impressive.
Mate, most of the girls that I meet in a surf trip are out in the water these days. Most of them surf. But maybe you're a bit prettier than me, so you attract a higher upper echelon. No, my girlfriends are great.
If you could see Tully's face over your shoulder, mate, it's priceless. She's like, ooh, that you don't need to bring a toothbrush because you can buy them everywhere. So I was like,
fair.
No, I've got some gums in there, guys. It's all good. But my essentials is actually trail mix, which I've got in my hand right now. So you need something to nibble on when you drive because it's so easy to get to your destination. You go on a surf, so you don't want to be bloated, full of all that those multinational companies I just mentioned, those big brand takeaway foods. It's so bad for you, and you got no choice sometimes when you're driving through the night. You need to eat. So always have trail mix. Every road trip, I've got trail mix. This is aside from boards and wetties and stuff. We got 12 boards in here behind me, but trail mix and my foam roller or a yoga mat. So after a big long drive, I'm always tense and I can't do my best surfing if I'm not limber. So I've been stuck so many times at contests or surf trips, just buckled. Like, I'm not eating properly and I'm not stretching. Been in the car for days and it just gets the best of me. So yeah, pretty much now it's foam roller and trail mix. I don't go anywhere without it.
All right. I'm glad everyone's finished talking about the 2 things they need now because I want to get back to Tully's story. So my next question, I'll start with Tully, is what's the worst breakdown story you've had whilst you're on a road trip?
So I've had multiple breakdowns. I used to have a super, super unreliable red Commodore wagon. It was highly challenged. And when I finished school, I'd just go pretty much anywhere that wasn't Manly Beach because that's all I surfed. And one time I decided at about 10:30 at night I was going to come pull into saltwater. And I was like, this is going to be great. A different place that's not that. Anyway. Blown the cover. Different place. Freshwater. The road in is like lots of trees, very long. Anyway, halfway down it, my car's alternator like blew up. and my car just stopped. Like, couldn't put the hazards on, nothing. It was dead.
We're talking no power. Like she's like 5 k's from anywhere. It's pitch black,
It's like a
big
forest.
dark trees. You know, it's not pretty. Like, it's not even good to break down in the daytime there.
No, just
Ben to Maxman.
not ideal. And then my phone's dead, so I had to run through the forest to a tavern.
Oh my god.
Tell them keep going.
Oh yeah, where I quickly got picked up to. I got offered to play in the local rugby team, and then got surrounded by a bunch of blokes who were very interested in why I walked into their tavern at 10:30 at night on like a Wednesday.
And you're underage.
Oh, and I'm underage. And yeah, and then all these guys were like, oh no, yeah, just you can come stay at my place. I'm like, no, I'm good, I'm fine. And eventually got towed back into town. So yeah, highly recommend NRMA roadside assist.
That's it.
What a crack.
And this is the same zone that only 2 weeks ago I was going to have a kip at this same area, and I noticed someone looking inside cars, and I thought, oh man, this doesn't feel right. You know, I can sense it. He went away, and I was just about to hop back in the van, and he came back, and he was looking inside, you know, a couple of the cars, and I thought, oh, this is sus. And then the cops are nearby. I let him know, hey, someone's just about to, you know, when you go for a sleep, you don't always think you're tired from driving. You might have your wallet in your front seat or whatever, and this guy probably makes a living out of it. And yeah, it's not a bad area, but anywhere at night, you know, there's a lot of people passing by. You know, there's all sorts of stuff that can go on. You know, the sinister side. But yeah, luckily Tully's still here to tell the story, and this time she's with me with a reliable car. Hopefully, because we got the battery going and the chargers. But yeah, she's still here to tell the story.
I had my old bonk like had a Toyota something or other. What was it? High Town Ace, and I was driving the road south from Crescent. Is it down to
What's
south,
Bummer.
south from Crescent, and so on the road back out to the highway from Crescent, you chuck a left there, and
Kempsey.
So yeah, before you get back into Kempsey, there's a road that goes parallel with the coast, heading south and takes you down to there's a little town, yeah, Iluka, and takes you down a little backtrack there, and there was like a rocky sort of gravelly track, and I punctured a tyre going around corners, being a bit silly, thinking I was in a race car and not in a Toyota van, and middle of the night, middle of the road, thing had off the side of the road into like a little ditch, and I walked back down because there was a farmhouse, you know, just not far back actually. And I walked back, and I was looking at their mailbox for their phone number so I could ring them up, you know, to say, hey, any chance I could borrow a jack or something. And their name was like RN and BF Dick. Their surname was actually Dick. And if you've ever done that road, that letterbox is there on the side of the road. So I was ringing up, you know, white pages, directory assistants saying, can I please have the phone number for Mr. and Mrs. Dick? And the person thought I was wasting their time and just being annoying. So that added a little element of adventure to it as well. Nate, have you had a breakdown?
Yeah, I had one a few years ago. On the Mornington Peninsula, I was driving to Gunnamatta, if any of you guys know that. It's just like another big open beach there. And yeah, a bit similar to you, Weeks. He was going around corners too fast, punctured a tyre in a pothole. And after that, I didn't realise because I'd never driven this way. I went inland towards the surf. And, anyway, I was getting through. And it was like sort of like the Great Ocean Road. And I'm going around all these corners, not realising that I punctured a tyre. And then it was like my car was on skates, and it was probably one of the scariest.
There is a lot of longboarders.
But yeah, called RACV. So definitely recommend you've got some roadside assistance with you at all times.
Definitely some places on the Great Ocean Road where you wouldn't want to drive over the edge. Now, Jack, you seem to always have your all your equipment sorted when you arrive at a contest and stuff. Have you had much luck with cars on road trips, or have you got some adventures as well?
Nothing too bad. Mainly just flat tires, punctured tires, trying to do donuts and stupid stuff like you've done. Just thinking you can do burnouts in dusty car parks, but nothing bad, nothing major. Just a couple of flat tires.
Actually, I've just had flashbacks from a certain Aussie titles where the Corbett boys, I think it was, and Jared Foster in a Tarago van. Didn't I see you behind the wheel of that at one point doing circles? In fact, I might even have,
Not me.
I may even have footage of it.
No, not me. Definitely not me. Not that I can remember.
Doesn't seem to be the sort of thing that you do, Jack. But far too sensible a guy. Shawnee Mac, I know you drive some dodgy cars over there in NZ, mate. You must have had a breakdown.
Mate, yeah, probably the worst one I had was we'd been away for a weekend, myself and my friend. We'd been up to Waipu Cove, and on the way home, going, bumping along the road in the old HD station wagon. The next minute I hear this clunk, and I see my rear tyre go flying past me with the axle still attached to it. That sort of pulled us up short. We're in the middle of nowhere, and your tyre's going down the road faster than you are. So, that one was a bit of a shock. We went and retrieved the tyre or the wheel. Was wearing a pair of board shorts, picked up the wheel, had to throw it over a fence. It was fairly heavy with the axle on it, rested on my chest, and it was red hot. I didn't even think about it. I had a brand on my chest for about 12 months.
Wow.
And then we had to go and find a house that had a phone, because in those days we didn't have mobiles. So it was a walk along to a farmhouse and knock on the door. But we ended up getting a tow truck, and about 80 or 100 kilometres sitting up in the tow truck with the wagon on the back of it, back to Auckland.
I guess that's one thing. We do get a few people tuning in from other parts of the world, and if you've not been to Australia, you may not understand the distances involved between towns. I know a lot of other places in the world, everything's a little bit closer together. So when you're in the middle of nowhere in Australia, you're really in the middle of nowhere. And same with NZ, of course. You get twisty, windy mountain roads with help is hours and hours away. So what do you look for when you go on a road trip? Is it about the getting there? Is it about the adventure? Is it about the kicking back at the end of the day? For you, Jack, what's the best part of the road trip? Is it the surfing, or is it the relaxing, the camaraderie? What floats your boat as far as getting you motivated to jump in a car and travel somewhere a fair distance away?
Obviously, the main goal is to get good waves, and that's always the main motivation to take road trips, obviously. But I think it's definitely your company, who you're with, and there's nothing like going away with your best mates. That's when you have the most fun, and sharing the stoke when you see your mates get good waves in front of you, and when you get good ones in front of them. I think it's a combination of who you're with, how long you have on the road trip. You can take your time stopping in at different places along the way, people you meet along the way, and obviously scoring good waves. That's the main goal and the thing I love the most.
And I guess, that's where you've got to choose wisely who you go on road trips with. I go with someone who wants to surf for an hour and it's like, oh, let's go home. It's like, no, there's waves. So, Tully, how's Matty been as a road trip partner so far? How's his song selection in the bus there?
Oh, it's been good. Listen to some podcasts. And we've only really been on the road for a day. So
Plenty of time
to drive back.
And how long are you away for?
24 hours.
Oh, that's it. Just a quick zoom.
Oh, I do it pretty good. I've got it pretty wide. Three surfs. Usually if it's just me, I sleep in the van, but we had somewhere sorted last night, and then we'll probably drive home now. Because there's a new swell coming in Sydney tomorrow. So why not? I do have a normal job, but I keep saying one more swell, I've got to make the most of it. And there's been 7 swells since May.
It's the first time I can remember in a long time where people, not that I've had a chance to chat to people all around the country every week like this, like with you guys, but it's the first time I can remember in a long time where everyone around the country has been really happy with their winter. It's just been, WA's been so much fun. Nath, road trips, mate. What inspires you to get in the car and go for that long, windy road?
I think obviously the main variable is getting good surf, but like Jack saying definitely about the company that you've got with you, and who you're traveling with. And I guess, that I really enjoy that euphoria of kind of surfing. And like when I was on my South Coast trip a few weeks ago before the COVID shit blew up, just like at Marimbula having a beer with some mates after surfing all day. And like, I definitely think that that's one of the best feelings about the surf trip, and just like chilling out after a big day of getting pumping waves.
And finally, Big Sean, what was the motivation for road trips? Obviously, getting down to Raglan is pretty good motivation for anyone, but I know that a couple of the Kiwi fellas back in the day didn't mind having a sherbet at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's hard. There's been different motivations at different times. For me, in Australia, when I first got here and I had my shops and everything, it was an excuse to get away from work, and I'd go away to the comps. And I really didn't care whether it was going up to Noosa or down to Crescent or whatever. I was just looking at getting somewhere that was a bit different. I'd go to the contest because I was after a new T-shirt and wanted a few cold beers. And if we got good waves, it was a bonus. But it was just meeting other people and that, and getting to know a bit of Australia.
Nice one. Now, I know WA, obviously, we get some big waves, but so does Victoria, so does Southern New South Wales, and Queensland doesn't. But but I know that over the years I've put myself into some fairly hairy situations. What's been the most gnarly situation you've been in so far, Nathan? Because I know, like I say, I've surfed that Vico coast a bit, and there's some fairly heavy situations down there with all the big rocks sticking out of the water and things. What's the gnarliest road trip scenario where you kind of go, well, maybe I could have just stayed home on the couch?
I reckon close. Well, I was even thinking of just Bells when you were talking about that, but yeah, I guess I could sort of speak about that. But either Bells or Joanna going surfing down there sometimes, sort of getting out of your comfort zone. And there was a day, Bells is only a few minutes down the road, but we had a massive swell probably 2-3 years ago. It was probably like 10 foot plus, and paddled out there and was just absolutely crapping myself, because Bells has that capacity to kind of look, 4 to 6 foot, and then you get those rogue, I'm sure it happens everywhere, but you get those rogue 10-foot sets, and it just cleans up everyone in the bowl. And I just remember having that feeling of thinking I actually thought I was going to drown. It was like, never had that fear before. And I was close in Hawaii a few times at Waimea. I was close, but yeah, that feeling of like not knowing if you're going to come up, I'd never had that feeling before. So that's probably the scariest situation. And I know it's not really on a proper road trip, but yeah, that was a bit scary.
And Jack, with your surfing experience and lineage and friends of friends that you've got around the place, I know some very well-respected hellmen have a lot of good things to say about you in Big Surf. So what's the gnarliest situation you found yourself in whilst on a road trip?
Does it have to be in Australia or overseas?
Look, yeah. We're going to do an international one later, but since it's gnarly, people aren't going to want to do it, and because they can't do it because of COVID, so this will make them glad they're staying at home. So yeah, international, go for it.
I was going to say, because most road trips I've had has normally been pretty small and no hairy situations, but the main one that comes to mind was when I was a bit younger. I was probably about 12, and I was staying at Bart Lynch's house in Hawaii, and we went to surf sunset this one day. It was a nice sunny day, probably like 3 to 4 foot. You had 6 foot set, and literally when I was out there within an hour, it just turned. And I was riding a shorty back then, but BL was out there, Ross Clark Jones was out there, Tommy Carroll was out there. They're all on these big boards, just testing them out for the swell that was coming. And mate, all of a sudden, it was my first time surfing out there, but the West Bowl just started turning on, and all these bombs just started coming out of nowhere. And literally within about 20-30 minutes, it picked up like 6 foot, and was easily like 10 foot bombs coming through. And I was pretty young and, wasn't experienced in such big surf like sunset. And I literally cracked myself and started crying. And I was like, paddled over to Ross Clark Jones, was like, mate, how do I get in? Like, literally just duck diving west bowls, just getting absolutely drilled into the reef and couldn't seem to get out. And he had just got one and passed me, and I was like, help me get in, because I didn't want to paddle over the reef. And he ended up pulling me out into the channel. I was like, just paddle straight, go, and like just told me to go straight in through the channel. But yeah, that was probably one feeling when I was just getting a bunch of sets on the head where I was like, wow, I'm doomed.
All over. It's a lot different when you got a 9 foot plus board attached to your leggy as well. The whitewater really throws you around a bit. I haven't really got any real hardcore longboarding ones because when the waves have been stupidly big and out of hand, I've not been on a longboard. There was one with Bert Berger, Margaret River, closing out the entire bay across to the box. And apparently he's got the footage of it. So I'll talk about that when he digs up the footage because it was ridiculously big and I didn't think I was going to be seen out the end of that day. What about yourself, Tully? Have you had some heavy road trip emotions? You find yourself wishing you weren't out there right then?
I think probably this year or past couple of years as I've started to ride shorter boards and go down south on trips more, I've definitely found myself in more like kind of slab sort of waves that I've gone, oh, it's actually way more heavy than I thought it was going to be. But I don't know, I can't really think of like one in particular. It's more just like general getting slammed. But
That feeling of the whole horizon turning black.
yeah, pretty much. How about you?
Mac, did you get any monster days?
Yeah, mate. Hey, you guys got 5 minutes because this was a good one. Back in it would have been the late 70s. We did a road trip. Robbie Barrett and Andy Johnson, who was a Newcastle boy, and we've head off down the Wairarapa, and we got to looking for a place called White Rock. We'd heard about it. It was a mysterious wave that was supposed to be really good, nobody around or anything. So we've driven, we stopped off a couple of spots, had good waves. Thought we're getting down close to where we were going, and we stopped off in Masterton, this little town, brought a couple of slabs of beer, and thought, well, we'll be able to get a feed at the shop at White Rock. And we're driving out through these instructions we had, and we found White Rock, which was a white rock. There was nothing there but a red barn and a goat track. So we followed the goat track because we were told there was a cabin that you could stay in. This goat track turned into an imaginary track. We were driving in a Cortina station wagon, went over a river, up the embankment, along this cliff top, and we finally found this cabin that we could stay in, which actually happened to be a Department of Conservation hunter's cabin. And we're on top of this cliff, and we're looking out, and the swell's horrendous. There's, we'd heard all these stories about where to go and how to surf, and out on the spit would have been 15, 20-foot sets. On the inside, it was 10 to 12-footed seconds. And we're looking at this place, and there's nothing. We are really isolated, and we're going, what the hell are we going to do? So we're going to have to climb down this cliff to surf. Weren't really keen because it was cold, it was windy. So we went into the cabin, stoked up the fire, had a couple of hot ones and a couple of beers, got enough courage, and we went to climb down this cliff. We've then managed to get it out through these boulders, jumped into the ocean and paddled out. And we're surfing these, what they called seconds, which was, reformed from the spit. And like I say, it's 10 or 12 foot, and we're scared shitless. Anyway, still, a bit of bravado. We've had a few waves. Then we decided time to come in, and we're going, where the hell do you come in? It was just big boulders at the foot of this cliff. And we're just going, how do you get in? So finally, we've managed to get in, battered and bruised, and climbed back up this cliff and back to the cabin. and we were going to stay the night. We had no food, but we had enough things to keep us occupied. And we're reading a log for whoever stayed in the cabin, to write down who they were, where they were travelling to, as far as going off bush tramping or deer hunting or whatever they were up to. And we were reading these stories about how when the wind comes down off Cape Palliser, the actual roof of this building would blow off and all these sort of things. And, it's time to go to sleep, and all we can hear is the roof banging all night. It's obviously coming off. We're miles from nowhere, and scared shitless. And next morning we got up. So the roof was still on, but we could still hear it banging. We got our boards, put them into the back of the car. You couldn't tie them on the roof. The wind was so strong. Walked around to make sure we hadn't left anything behind, and found the remains of the roof that had blown off a few years ago. But we jumped in the car and got the hell out of there because, man, it was a long, cold, scary night with nothing to eat. So, that was my scariest surf trip.
That's hardcore.
Sounds like a gnarly day all round. Sorry, I was just Googling orchestra music. I was just going to
Right, you had to be there.
I literally was. Orchestra music. But sometimes what happens on the land is worse than what happens in the water. But I think the best thing about a road trip is getting a bit of variety. You never quite know what you're going to get. I mean, if you go away to play golf, you can look at Google Earth and see the golf course you're going to go and play at, and you can look at the layout and all the rest of it. But with surfing, you're never quite sure what you're going to get. But sometimes when you get skunked, it still end up being the funnest trip because you've done something else along the way that remains in your memories, and of course you get to keep those photos in your head. So I'd encourage everyone, if you haven't done so, chuck a couple of boards in your car and head off and go and search within your own state, and you might be amazed at what you find. So I know that all of us have already spoken about this on a number of occasions. We're all a bit of a believers in ride everything. So Jack, you can take 3 surfboards with you. You're going on a road trip. You've only got room for 3 surfboards. What are those 3 surfboards you're chucking in the car, mate?
At the moment,
okay, so you're going away for 2 weeks. So it's a proper, a good length road trip. You're going to be in a variety of places. So,
I would take my Skin Dog nose rider for small days. I would take a performance longboard and a mid-length, probably my 610 at the moment, which I'm loving. So good for small days, good for pumping days, and then my log for when it's small, and my performance board for when it's clean and a bit of size.
What sort of shape's that mid-length? Is that like the fish or something, or is it?
The 610. It's shaped by Billy Tolhurst. It's a 6-channel 610 as a quad setup. So it's good in small ways, like for groveling, and it's also really good when it's pumping. So it's good in both conditions and a bit of an all-rounder. It's good for it's a good board to have in the quiver, that's for sure.
Yeah, it sounds like it will cover quite a few bases for you. And obviously, as longboarders, I think we can get away with riding a longer shoreboard anyway. It's so easy to turn them by comparison to a 9-footer. Yeah. Matty Chinosky, I don't know how many cupboards you've got in that van there, but I reckon you've opened and closed about 20 of them just on the dash.
Yeah.
When we go to the customised road bus section, I reckon we're going to have to spend a whole hour just on the walkthrough of your bus. But so you've got 12 boards in the back, but let's pretend you haven't got so much room, mate. You're only allowed to take 3. Which 3? Great.
If I'm going North Coast, well, because we're just talking about Australia at the moment, but if I'm going North Coast, a log that can turn. So something for me, 9.3, 9.4. I've got a nose rider, which has got some pretty thin, knifey rails. So that'll see me surfing any of the point breaks, but I'll also be able to surf like 4 feet, sort of waves if I have to. A mid-length McTavish Rincon, which is my model I designed for a combination of basically a mid-length you can still knee paddle and cross step on. I can sort of surf that in barrels, and that'll get me up to 6 feet. And yeah, probably just I've got a couple of pintail longboard semi-guns. They're single fins. They're sort of 9.0, 8 to 9.0s, triple stringers. They're kind of actually gliding, really nice to glide on because they're gunny shape. but I'll surf that when it's, double overhead plus. But yeah, actually they surf really well when it's kind of fat, like at water goes. I don't want to blow spots out, but water goes is not a secret spot. But yes, you can glide around and stuff. So yeah, mid-length, a normal log and a gun.
Nice one. And Tully, you do a bit of shortboarding as well? Are you pretty much primarily a longboarder? What 3 boards are you taking on your road trip?
I mean, primarily longboard, but 3 boards. I'd take my big Odon log, and then
Shaped by who?
shaped by Steve Odon.
Yeah.
And then
Give him a plug. Go on. Who are your sponsors? Who shapes your boards?
and then I've got a 9.3 Kyo International. Take that too. That was really fun. And then I have a 7.0 Bonza 3 fin.
Ooh, interesting. I like a bit of quirky, bit of bonzer action. Nate, what's your 3 guns of choice?
I'm probably taking my Strapper. He's a local Torquay Shaby Strapper surfboard is my shortboard, 5.8. And then I'll probably whack in my 9.2 Pale Horse, Matty Shea. Custom sort of hybrid board that's really nice to turn as well as nose ride. And then I'm whacking in my Pale Horse 9.4 nose rider as well, which will be good in the smaller stuff. So hopefully have a bit for everything.
Yeah. And you're a bit like me, sort of probably a bit more shortboardy than maybe some of the other panelists, but I'll probably just take the 3 I've got in my car today. Clearwater Macca model. That 6.4 I showed you guys last week with the 3 fins in it. And my little 5.2 fins that I made myself, which is my favourite funnest board to ride when the conditions are right. Sean, what did you have to? What's a road trip entail?
Mate, I've never taken away more than 2 boards. Normally, I'll have had a 9-footer with the thruster set up with fin boxes and that, and that would be my go-to board most of the time. But also, I used to take an 8-footer that would be a little bit flatter, fixed fins, and that would be for more slabby waves, something you paddled a bit faster, and sort of just that little bit shorter, a little bit narrower, so that if it was a serious wave, it would be a bit more suitable. But could never afford 3 boards.
Sometimes forget, and of course it totally makes a difference where you're heading as well. There's not many places in WA where it's primarily longboarding breaks. But if I was heading on the east coast, I'd have a high performance longboard and probably something with a bit of volume in the shortboard range.
On that, Weeksy, it's funny you mentioned the 3 board thing, because I think one of the major adaptations for road trips, and some of the older listeners or some of the people who are tuning in are a bit older, have been doing road trips well before online, surf forecasts and stuff. So they did have the 1 board, and they've surfed all those spots, and that sense of adventure that you talked about, especially Sean's story there, where you just don't know what you're going to face at the end of the cliff. That was a reality for hundreds of thousands of surfers in Australia and around the world in their road trips with 1 board or 2 boards. They're essential kit. None of us mentioned it, but it's it was probably ding repair supplies, really. Wax and ding repair supplies.
We're a bit spoiled these days.
It's amazing to see how far we've gone. So you can travel with 3 boards because you can forecast what you're going to get.
Yeah, and you can use Google Earth and stuff to go find the places that are hidden away. Otherwise, you can find out where the tracks go. Okay, so then we're almost we'll try and finish close to on time this week, just to set a new trend. But let's finish off with where's somewhere in your own state that you haven't been. And of course, it's a bit hard to separate. Most of my surfing life as a grommet, when I got my license, which is when you wanted to go everywhere, I was purely a shortboarder. But where's one place in your own state that you haven't been where it's on your bucket list? You've got to get there at some point, you just haven't done it yet. Start with you, Sean, being right on the Queensland border there. If you're going to go surfing tomorrow and you have to go on a road trip somewhere in Queensland you've never been, where would it be?
Wow, hey, I fulfilled that dream earlier this year when we went up to Agnes Water. Yeah. Because, till then I'd never been past Noosa, but I'd surfed, all the Goldie, all of the Sunshine Coast. Sort of probably, I haven't been to Double Island Point, so maybe DI would be on the bucket list.
Yep. And that's another secret spot that no one wants us talking about. I don't know why, but they just reminded me to say happy birthday to Fenna de King. I think it was Fenna's birthday yesterday or something, but Double Island Point just reminded me of her. For me personally, I've got a couple of mates who invite me every year. Actually, well done to Mickey Marlin. He's taken out the over 70s at the WA State Round at Avalon Point in really, really good waves on the weekend. I couldn't get there because I was still fitting a new turbo to my car and had a few issues and didn't get it done in time for the weekend. But Mickey Marlin, Billy Gibson and longboard Lou Corkle go every year up to Nalu and surf Nalu and the Bluff. And I really want to get up there one year. I haven't yet as a goofy footer, perfect left-handers. That's mine. Jack, have you got any boxes you haven't ticked yet, mate, within your own state, or have you covered it all?
I was just looking on Google Maps. I haven't. The only place I haven't been in New South Wales, well, I haven't been to every single surf spot, obviously, but is down south of Wollongong at like Bateman's Bay and Merimbula. I have a friend who lives down there, and yeah, I think it pumps down there. But one day I'll get down there and have a suss of the area.
I have been told that little part of the coast down there absolutely pumps. And a West Aussie, actually, someone who spent a lot of time in Western Australia told me that. He reckons down there is epic, little coves and corners. So, Matt Chinosky, you must have covered most of the New South Wales coast, mate. Is there anywhere that's on your longboarding bucket list?
Yeah, pretty similar to Jack. I've done a lot of time in Ulladulla, which is just north of Bateman's, and I have hit Bateman's. That was one of my goals for last year, actually, to go further south. But yeah, towards the Vico border and to sort of Bateman's Bay, that last 2 hours of stretch on the coast, the geography does change, and it is a very unique. New South Wales changes a lot, our geography. That's something I really love. Sydney's got the sandstone cliffs. Further north, past Newcastle, it's very like almost lava rock, like Hawaii kind of style rock. It's quite sharp. And long white sand beaches, and further north the cobblestone points. But further south, it changes radically. Every 50 Ks, it's like another sort of stretch of, landscape. And yeah, I'd love to go down there. There's a lot of estuaries, and I'm sure there's some like river mouth setups, maybe, who knows, down south. So suss those out one day.
Sweet. And Nath Riverland, you've probably got a coastline even longer than the West Australian coast, pretty much, when you consider how much of WA you can't surf. But any secret spots or places you've been meaning to get to you haven't got around to yet?
Not so much a secret spot, but I'd love to go to Wilson's Promontory. I've never been there. Apparently it's got really nice waves. Especially on this side, it's southeast. When it's southeast, there's not many places you can really surf within sort of 60 Ks of Torquay. So southeast and anything with south works really nice down at Wilson's Prom. So either there or Portland towards South Oz would be really good. I haven't been there either.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty secret down there.
Yep, and you got some islands and stuff as well. I can tell you Wilson's Prom does get really good. I was at Sale Air Force Base when I did my navigator training when I was in the Air Force a long time ago. Actually surfed Lake Wellington. There's a big lake out the back of Sale, and when it's a howling wind, it actually gets surfable waves on the lake there. But Honeymoon Beach, and there's a whole bunch of beaches up there, don't bother. But Lake's Entrance and then Wilson's Prom, get some good waves. Who didn't we cover? Oh, Tully, our special guest.
Yes.
Mine aren't that different from Jack and Chono. They're, just that whole past Ulladulla. Haven't really explored around there, and love to give it a couple of weeks to just look around.
How long does it take you to get there from Manly, Tully?
4 hours, maybe?
It's
not that far.
Isn't that amazing? And so there's some inspiration, guys. So the reason I wanted to go through that was because here's, some pretty experienced, well-travelled surfers, and even within a 4-hour drive of the nation's capital city, there's little places and nooks and crannies they haven't been to yet. And there's so much coast to see, and within our own states, let alone within our own country. So should take that as some motivation. What's somewhere on your list that you haven't surfed at that you can put on a piece of paper tonight, and before this COVID business is over and you're allowed to leave the state again, go tick off one of those places on your state's list?
Hey, Jace, how come you can't, you said before in WA, a lot of the northern, well, I'm assuming northern areas not surfable. Yeah. Why is that, just for the viewers?
Oh, okay. So there's a couple of reasons, but basically the bottom corner of Western Australia is very surfable, the Margaret River region in the southwest. You get about 5 hours north of Perth and you're in Geraldton and there's waves there, and then Kalbarri, Jake's Point. And then it's after Kalbarri, it's another 3-hour drive north to the next place where you can surf, and well, that's to Carnarvon, and then it's another 3-hour drive from there to where you get down a dirt track to where you can surf. Once you get north of that, and you're only halfway up, that's 1,800 kilometres north of, only about 800 kilometres north of Perth. I've surfed in Karratha, which is about 1,800 kilometres north of Perth, and that's about halfway up WA. And there's waves there on the outer reefs, and there's a lot of wildlife and activity. And anywhere further north than that, you're sharing the water with so many sea snakes, crocodiles. And there's also outer islands, so that you don't actually get much swell. It's once you get past where WA, I don't even know if I can get this the right way around. So where WA curves up that way, once you get past the bump where Broome is, I've surfed at Broome at Cable Beach, but north of that, there's basically no waves unless it's a cyclone or a tropical cyclone. And in that case, there'll be trees and houses and cars and stuff in the water with the alligators and the sea snakes and all the rest of it. It's just, you wouldn't go there on a road trip because if there is waves, something bad's going to happen.
And that goes for the same for like Northern Territory, obviously with exceptional circumstances, with weather conditions.
Yeah, Northern Territory is the same. You can occasionally, on the back of a cyclone, there's a couple of places that get really good waves, but you need to have someone on the beach with a rifle watching out for crocodiles and things, because as much as sharks only really accidentally interact with people, crocodiles will purposely interact with people. So stay away.
Much like localism and longboards in Sydney in the 80s.
All right. So in the meantime, it doesn't look like there's going to be much road tripping outside our own states going on. Victoria, at the moment, you're only allowed to go 5. How far is it from your house you're allowed to go, Nathan?
I think, down here on the coast, we're just in stage 3, so it's probably like 50 or 60. But if you're living in the city or the suburbs there, it's 5Ks. So
terrible. And so to all our city longboarding family, commiserations, guys, because if you're not right on the coast, you won't be getting your fix until the Tullamarine wave pool opens up. Maybe they should just employ people who've definitely got COVID so everyone can just go there. all the COVID patients can go surf at the wave pool. So that really is horrible. And on behalf of all of us who can go surfing, I think we should appreciate how lucky we are. And surfing it's a hobby, it's a sport, it's a pastime, it's an exercise, a release, a meditation, whatever you use it for. And to those of you who've had it taken away, I really do feel sorry for you, and I hope you can replace it with something else that keeps you smiling and keeps it fun. Anyone got anything to add before we finish up on this road trip episode? It went nothing like what I thought it was going to go like, because I was too busy surfing today to think about it too much. But
no, it went good, Jace. I think we should, Sean mentioned it earlier, but maybe move into surf cars in a later episode and touch on that, and maybe we can show our van setups and try and inspire some people.
That's a fantastic idea. I spent a lot of time in van life, and people like Jay Mulheron and obviously some of our recent guests. Ray Gleave's a great example. Mark McNamara, who I live with, Michael Cottier with his big bus. I mean, done a lot of van life. I reckon that's a great idea, Shawnee. And Matt, you're obviously got a bit to show off in your bus there. You guys have got a bit of a drive ahead of you, so we'd better try and stop only slightly late. Sean, you're leaning back to remind me I've forgotten to mention who's on next week.
Harley Ingleby, 2 times world champion. Woo!
Great to have Harley on. I haven't. He's been a bit quiet lately. It'd be interesting to know what he's been up to. His take on the new, the implementation of the criteria over the last couple of years, as well as what's going on with FCS and GoPro and all the.
And the baby.
And the baby.
Yes.
One of my best surfing road trip memories was being allowed to sleep at Harley's dad's house upstairs underneath all those boards on the roof. Really cool.
Yes.
So good times. It'd be great to have a chat with Harley. Guys, thanks for joining us. Maddie, thanks for bringing Tully along. And Tully, thanks for putting off your journey home to chat with us for an hour. It's been great having you on. I know
Thanks for having me.
Kira wasn't able to come on tonight because of a family dinner, so it's great to have a female perspective.
And you know what's crazy, Jace, is Tully was like, "Oh, Kira Molnar just sent me a message saying if we should, wants to jump on the podcast." The exact thing that I was mentioning to Tully, like, half an hour previously. It was weird.
Right.
So.
Because I actually got a message from Kira this morning, and obviously she forgets I'm in Western Australia, so it was about 6:45 this morning, and she's like, "Should I get Tully on?" And I'm like, "Yeah, look, talk to Sean. I'm not even awake yet." So it was meant to be. Thanks for being with us, Tully. I hope you guys got the gold that you needed for your photo shoot. Jack, thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule, mate. It's great we could have you on for the whole show. And Nath, hope your birthday went good last week for your sister. We're in Brady Bunch mode, so everyone can see you. Wave to your mums and dads, and we'll see you next week talking with 2 times world champion Harley Ingleby, and hopefully Kira can be back on board as well. And soon we'll be talking about our favourite international road trips once we get closer to actually being able to have one. Wherever you're watching from, around Australia, around the world, get in your car, go on a road trip. This has been episode 12 of Oz Longboarding. We'll see you next week for episode 14. Should we skip one so we don't get unlucky episode 13? Whatever happens, we'll see you next Thursday, Australian Eastern Standard Time. Catch you next time.
Cheers, crew.
Cheers.
The longboard talk.